The Grand Council chamber of the Unified Galactic Species wasn't designed for conspiracies. Its soaring crystal walls stretched a kilometer into the artificial atmosphere of Station Zero, refracting starlight into a dazzling array of colors that danced across the assembled diplomats. Floating holo displays buzzed with activity, showing real-time updates from 10,000 worlds across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. Everything about the chamber spoke of transparency, cooperation, and mutual understanding between civilizations, which of course made it the perfect place for Ambassador Zark Tal to plot humanity's downfall. The humans must be neutralized, Zark Tal declared, their crystalline appendages clicking nervously against the ancient council table. The sound echoed through the chamber, causing several of the more sensitive diplomats to vibrate in discomfort. Have you seen their latest expansion reports? 3 new colony worlds in a standard cycle. 3. It took my species 50 cycles just to establish our first off-world settlement. The ambassador's crystalline form shifted through various shades of agitated purple as they pulled up a holographic display. Charts and graphs materialized in the air, showing humanity's exponential growth since their acceptance into the galactic community. First speaker Quip's tentacles rippled with diplomatic concern, their bioluminescent spots pulsing in what the protocol droids identified as professional worry pattern 7. They'd spent 3 centuries perfecting their diplomatic expressions, and they weren't about to let some upstart crisis derail their careful calibration of tentacle-based emotional displays. Neutralized is such a harsh term, Ambassador Quip suggested, carefully modulating their translator to convey both authority and gentle reproach. Perhaps peacefully contained would be more appropriate for official records? We wouldn't want the humans' AI monitoring systems to flag any unfortunate terminology. Call it whatever you want in the minutes. Zark Tal waved a crystalline limb dismissively, sending rainbow refractions skittering across the chamber walls. The fact remains that these humans are dangerous. Did you know they evolved on a death world? Their bones are reinforced with calcium. Calcium. They're walking around with literal rocks inside them. The assembled alien diplomats shuddered in unified horror. Everyone knew that proper civilized species had evolved with sensible cartilage-based support structures. The very idea of mineral deposits serving as internal support was barbaric. Several of the gelatinous representatives had to excuse themselves to their hydration chambers to recover from the shock. And that's not even the worst of it, Zark Tal continued, their crystal matrix vibrating with nervous energy. I've been studying their military capabilities. They call their basic training boot camp. They deliberately make their soldiers uncomfortable to toughen them up. They run for kilometers carrying heavy weights. They sleep outdoors. On purpose. What kind of species does that? A representative from the Silicon Consciousness Collective extruded a worried processing node. Our analysis suggests they actually enjoy these activities. They have something called extreme sports where they risk deactivation for entertainment. Most concerning, Quip agreed. Their tentacles now tied in worried knots. Their bioluminescence had shifted to diplomatic crisis pattern 3 with undertones of personal existential dread. But surely direct action would be unwise? The humans have demonstrated remarkable resilience when threatened. Need I remind the Council of the Proxima incident? The chamber fell silent. Nobody wanted to remember the Proxima incident. The cleanup had taken decades, and they were still finding pieces of battle mechs in the oddest places. Zark Tal's crystalline form sparkled with smug satisfaction. Oh no, nothing so crude. I have a much more elegant solution. They gestured to their personal assistant drone, which projected a detailed molecular diagram into the center of the chamber. You see, I've been studying their diplomatic protocols. Apparently they have this bizarre custom called a toast where they consume fermented vegetable juice together. You mean their neural suppressant beverage? Asked a floating gas cloud that served as the ambassador from the nebula consciousness. Static crackled through their translator as they processed the concept. The one they call wine. Exactly, Zark Tal's voice modulated with excitement. They deliberately poison themselves with ethanol for pleasure. Primitive, really, but it gives us an opportunity. Their crystal matrix shifted to a conspiratorial deep blue as they lowered their voice. What if we were to enhance their traditional beverage? Add something a bit stronger. Something that would make them more amenable to our suggestions. The molecular diagram shifted, showing a complex compound merging with the simple ethanol structure of wine. Several biochemistry-capable species in the chamber made sounds of appreciation at the elegant simplicity of the reaction. But wouldn't they notice, Quip worried. Their tentacles now so knotted that the protocol droids were calculating the probability of permanent entanglement. Their chemical detection capabilities are focused on known threats, ZRK interrupted, their crystal matrix gleaming with pride. They've never encountered Morphission Truth Serum before. It's completely compatible with their biochemistry. They'll just feel a bit more relaxed, a bit more trusting. By the time the reception is over, they'll have agreed to all sorts of reasonable restrictions on their expansion. For their own safety, of course. The chamber filled with thoughtful murmuring. Tentacles waved in consideration. Crystal matrices shifted through contemplative color patterns, and gas clouds swirled in deliberative patterns. It was elegant, everyone had to admit. No violence, no obvious threats, just a pleasant diplomatic reception where humanity's representatives would happen to become more cooperative than usual. Very well, Quip declared, untangling their tentacles with an effort that would require 3 hours of meditation to recover from. But I wanted on record that I expressed concerns about potential cultural misunderstandings, and someone please make sure the cleaning drones are on standby. I have a feeling we might need them. Duly noted. ZRK Tal practically sparkled with triumph, their crystal matrix shifting through victory colors that hadn't been seen since their species' ancient war dances. Now let's discuss the details. The humans arrive tomorrow and everything must be perfect. Ambassador Quip, I trust you've reviewed their diplomatic profiles? We'll need to know exactly what varieties of wine to provide. The diplomatic reception hall looked perfect, which made Ambassador ZRK Tal deeply suspicious. In their experience, perfection usually meant something was about to go horribly wrong. They'd spent hours ensuring the wine service was arranged just so crystal decanters filled with Earth's finest vintages, each carefully enhanced with a precise dose of Morphission Truth Serum. The first human to arrive was Dave Martinez, Earth's newly appointed diplomatic liaison. He wore what their cultural briefings identified as a slightly rumpled suit, and carried himself with the casual confidence of someone who had either mastered the art of diplomacy or simply didn't care about it. Nice setup you've got here, Dave said, glancing around the reception hall. Love what you've done with the gravity generators. Very swanky. ZRK Tal's crystal matrix flickered with confusion. Their briefings hadn't covered the term swanky. We're honored by your presence, Ambassador Martinez. I trust you'll find everything to your satisfaction, especially the wine selection. We've procured some of your planet's finest vintages. Oh yeah, Dave's eyes lit up as he approached the wine table. Hey, is that a 2087 Martian Red? Those are hard to get even back home. And, wait, is that actual French Bordeaux? The real Earth stuff. Only the best for our honored guests, ZRK Tal preened, their crystal matrix glowing with satisfaction. The humans' own cultural exports had made selecting the bait almost too easy. Lieutenant Kelly O'Brien, the human security chief, materialized next to Dave with the unsettling suddenness that seemed characteristic of her species. Her red hair was pulled back in a severe bun, and she carried herself with the alert tension of someone who expected trouble at any moment. Sir, she nodded to Dave, security sweeps complete. Though I still say we should have brought our own drinks. No offense to our hosts, but... Kelly, Dave cut her off with a practiced ease. We've talked about this. Diplomatic relations require trust. Besides, look, they've got Bordeaux. More human diplomats filtered in, followed by representatives from a dozen other species. ZRK Tal watched with mounting anticipation as the first round of wines was poured. The humans accepted their glasses with enthusiasm, even as other species stuck to their traditional nutrient solutions. First speaker Quip drifted over, their tentacles arranged in what they hoped was a casual pattern. Is everything proceeding according to plan? Perfectly, ZRK Tal hummed. The first dose should take effect within minutes. Then we can begin the real negotiations about their expansion policies. They watched as Dave raised his glass in what the briefings had called a toast. To interstellar cooperation, he announced, and to our gracious hosts. The humans drank deeply. ZRK Tal's crystal matrix vibrated with anticipation. Nothing happened. Show. The humans continued chatting, laughing, and most worryingly remaining completely clear-headed. If anything, they seemed to be getting more animated. Hey, Dave called out, waving his empty glass, this stuff is great. Who's ready for round 2? Zarkatal's crystal matrix shifted to alarm purple. Round 2. Well, yeah, Dave grinned, already heading back to the wine table. Can't let good Bordeaux go waste. Kelly, you've got to try this one. Reminds me of that stuff your grandmother makes, but, actually legal. Something was very, very wrong. The dose of truth serum in those glasses should have had them spilling state secrets by now, not asking for refills. Zarkatal watched in horror as the humans began explaining the concept of wine tasting to a fascinated group of silicon-based beings. Lieutenant O'Brien took another sip and raised an eyebrow. Interesting aftertaste. Almost reminds me of that time we had to antidote the whole crew after the Betelgeuse mission. Remember that, Dave? Oh yeah, Dave chuckled. Good times. Though nothing beats that moonshine Sergeant Rodriguez makes in the engine room. Now that'll put hair on your thorax, as our Centaurian friends would say. Zarkatal's crystal matrix was now cycling through colors usually associated with severe indigestion. QWeb's tentacles had tied themselves into what the protocol droids would later classify as an entirely new expression of diplomatic panic. The night was just beginning, and somehow they both knew it was going to be a very, very long one. 3 hours into the reception, Ambassador Zarkatal was experiencing what humans would call a nervous breakdown. Their crystal matrix had settled into a sickly greenish gray, a color traditionally reserved for planetary extinction events. The humans weren't just resistant to the Morphision truth serum, they were completely immune. Worse, they were now on their 5th round of drinks, getting louder and more animated with each glass. So then Dave was saying to an enthralled audience of silicon-based diplomats, "We discovered that if you ferment honey, you get mead. If you ferment potatoes, you get vodka." Basically, humans figured out how to turn anything edible into alcohol. We're like walking distilleries. Lieutenant O'Brien nodded sagely. My uncle once made whiskey from old newspapers during the Mars embargo. Terrible stuff, but it got the job done. That's impossible, Zarkatal finally burst out. The concentration of neural suppressants in those drinks should have knocked out a Jovian gas whale. The room went very quiet. Neural suppressants, Kelly's eyebrows shot up. You mean besides the ethanol? I believe first speaker Quip interjected, their tentacles writhing in diplomatic distress. What Ambassador Zarkatal means to say is... Oh no, Dave interrupted, a broad grin spreading across his face. Let's hear exactly what they mean to say. You spiked our drinks. Zarkatal's crystal matrix began cycling through colors typically associated with deep space panic. It was just a small dose of Morphision truth serum. Nothing harmful. We just wanted you to be more amenable to discussion about your expansion policies. To everyone's surprise, Dave burst out laughing. Truth serum? In our wine? Kelly, you owe me 20 credits. I told you they'd try something like this. Wait, one of the silicon diplomats extruded a confused processing node. You knew. Suspected, Kelly shrugged. Standard human diplomatic protocol always assumes someone's trying to poison your drinks. Though usually they're a bit more creative about it. But Zarkatal's voice modulator was starting to glitch, the neural suppressant effects. Oh, that's adorable. Dave wiped tears from his eyes. You folks really don't understand human biochemistry, do you? Let me explain something about humans and alcohol. He gestured to a nearby service drone, which projected a diagram of human metabolic pathways. See, we've been drinking fermented beverages for most of our recorded history. Alcohol isn't just a neural suppressant for us, it's a social lubricant, a cultural cornerstone, and occasionally a substitute for personality. Not to mention, Kelly added, after the great coffee shortage of 2076, half the human race developed an alcohol tolerance that would kill most species. Your truth serum probably got metabolized before it could even reach our bloodstream. But the expansion policies, Zarkatal weakly protested. Oh, we can still discuss those, Dave grinned, pulling out a flask from his jacket. But first, who wants to try some real human drinks? This here is something we call Everclear. Think of it as wine's angry cousin. Quip's tentacles tied themselves into a new knot pattern that the protocol droids immediately classified as Existential Horror 17. Perhaps they suggested we should call in the medical teams before. Too late, Dave announced cheerfully, already pouring shots. Now who wants to learn about human drinking games? The night was about to get much more interesting. The diplomatic reception had devolved into what humans called a proper party. Ambassador ZRK Tal watched in horror as Dave Martinez taught a group of silicon-based diplomats how to play something called quarters. See, you bounce the coin, and if it lands in the glass, everyone else drinks. Dave demonstrated with impressive accuracy for someone who'd consumed enough alcohol to sterilize a small moon. But we don't drink, protested a crystalline diplomat. Then do whatever your species does to celebrate. Vibrate, glow, emit spores, we're all friends here. Lieutenant O'Brien had somehow acquired a karaoke machine and was teaching first speaker Quip the words to Sweet Home Alabama. Quip's tentacles were surprisingly good at air guitar. This is a diplomatic catastrophe, ZRK Tal moaned, their crystal matrix stuck in a shade of blue usually associated with cosmic depression. Actually, a passing human diplomat corrected. This is how we do our best negotiating. Watch and learn. Indeed, amid the chaos, actual diplomatic progress was happening. A methane-breathing ambassador had just signed a trade agreement on a cocktail napkin. Two energy beings were discussing cultural exchange programs with a human scientist who was teaching them to dance the Macarena. Did you know, Dave announced to no one in particular, that humans used to seal treaties by drinking together? Something about sharing alcohol meant you weren't trying to poison each other. Which, by the way, nice try with that truth serum. Very cute. ZRK Tal's crystal matrix somehow managed to sink even lower in embarrassment. Oh, don't feel bad, Kelly patted them consolingly, nearly missing their crystalline shoulder. You're not the first to try. Remember the Arcturus summit? They tried to dose our coffee. Our coffee. Like we hadn't already built up an immunity to every known stimulant in the galaxy. But the protocols, ZRK Tal weakly protested, are being followed perfectly. Dave called out, look, we're building trust, sharing cultures, and nobody started a war. That's diplomacy. Now, who wants to learn about body shots? Several protocol droids immediately self-destructed in protest. The night reached its crescendo when a group of gas cloud entities attempted to perform the MECA. Their molecular structure couldn't quite form the letters, but their enthusiasm was undeniable. I believe first speaker Quip announced, their tentacles now decorated with tiny paper umbrellas, that this has been the most successful diplomatic reception in recent memory. But we didn't discuss the expansion policies, ZRK Tal wailed. Sure we did, Dave grinned. Check your datapad. While everyone was having fun, we approved 3 new trade routes, set up 6 cultural exchange programs, and agreed to share terraforming technology. Turns out your species' crystal matrix resonance patterns could revolutionize our atmospheric processors. ZRK Tal stared at their pad in disbelief. Somehow, between drinking games and karaoke, more actual diplomacy had been accomplished than in the last 10 formal sessions combined. That's the thing about humans, Kelly explained, now wearing what appeared to be a lampshade as a hat. We do our best work when we're relaxed and having fun. You didn't need truth serum, you just needed to let us be ourselves. Also, Dave added, next time just ask if you want to know our secrets. First round's always on us. The cleanup drones would later report this as the first diplomatic reception in history to end with a conga line of 17 different species singing Don't Stop Believin' in perfect harmony. The morning after the reception, the Grand Council chamber had been repurposed for what humans called a hangover recovery session. The cleaning drones had done their best, but there were still paper umbrellas stuck in places paper umbrellas had no business being. Dave Martinez sat at the council table, looking irritatingly fresh for someone who had consumed enough alcohol to power a small spacecraft. So, he said cheerfully to the assembled diplomats, many of whom were experiencing their species' equivalent of regret, shall we discuss those expansion policies properly? Ambassador ZRK Tal's crystal matrix was stuck in a dull gray that perfectly matched their mood. How are you even functioning? Water, electrolytes, and about 30,000 years of evolutionary adaptation to metabolizing alcohol, Dave shrugged. Plus, Lieutenant O'Brien makes a mean hangover cure. Speaking of which, Kelly appeared, carrying a tray of suspicious-looking beverages. Traditional Earth remedies, she announced. We've got Bloody Marys, pickle juice, and something my grandmother swears by, but I'm legally required to warn you might void your life insurance. First speaker Quip, their tentacles still sporting one stubborn paper umbrella, managed to untangle themselves enough to ask, why are you being so nice to us after our attempt to manipulate you? Dave's expression softened. Look, you're not the first civilization to be scared of humans. We get it. We're weird. We drink poison for fun. We have rocks in our bodies, and we colonize planets that should, by all rights, kill us instantly. Don't forget the extreme sports, Kelly added helpfully. Right, thanks. The point is, trying to drug us into being less expansionist? That's actually one of the more reasonable responses we've encountered. At least you didn't try to blow up our sun. Several diplomats shifted uncomfortably, hastily deleting items from their future agenda. But here's the thing, Dave continued, sliding data pads across the table. You don't need to fear our expansion, because we want you to expand with us. These trade agreements we drafted last night, they're about sharing technology, knowledge, and resources. Yes, humans are good at surviving on death worlds, which means we can help make those worlds livable for everyone. You're offering to help us colonize new planets as Tal's crystal matrix shifted to a cautiously hopeful blue. Better, Kelly grinned. We're offering to teach you how to survive them yourselves, starting with building up your alcohol tolerance. That's not exactly what I meant, Dave began. Though it's not a bad place to start, he admitted. After all, nothing builds trust like sharing a drink, even if someone did spike it with truth serum. About that, Tal's matrix flickered with embarrassment. We should formally apologize. Unnecessary, Dave waved it off. Though if you really want to make it up to us, we could use some help with our new terraforming project. Turns out your crystal matrix technology could speed up atmospheric processing by about 300%. Plus, I hear your species makes some interesting recreational minerals. First speaker quips tentacles suddenly untied themselves. Are you suggesting cultural exchange? Dave winked. You share your fancy rocks, we'll share our fancy drinks. Fair trade. And that was how, to the eternal confusion of future historians, the greatest alliance in galactic history was born from a failed attempt at drink tampering. 6 months after the infamous truth serum incident, now officially recorded in galactic archives as Cultural Exchange Initiative Alpha, the Grand Council chamber had undergone some interesting modifications. Crystal decanters lined the walls, each containing carefully labeled samples of human alcoholic beverages. A sign in 27 languages warned for diplomatic purposes only, medical teams on standby. Dave Martinez stood before the council, giving what he insisted was a totally serious presentation on human drinking customs throughout history. Behind him, a holographic display showed the evolution of human fermentation techniques, from ancient Egyptian beer to synthetic quantum-aged whiskey. And that's why he concluded, adjusting his now standard diplomatic casual attire, humans developed enzymes specifically designed to process alcohol. We literally evolved to drink poison for fun. Any questions? Every appendage, tentacle, and sensing organ in the room raised in unison. Yes, the gaseous entity in the back, Dave pointed. Is it true, the cloud of sentient plasma crackled, that humans once used alcohol as currency? Still do. In some places, Lieutenant O'Brien chimed in from her security post, where she was teaching young diplomatic cadets the fine art of detecting tampered drinks. My cousin paid for his university education with a rare bourbon collection. Ambassador Tal, their crystal matrix now permanently tinted with what they called human-induced iridescence, raised a glittering appendage. But surely this explains only part of humanity's unique characteristics. What about your tendency to colonize inappropriate planets? Funny you should ask, Dave grinned, switching the holographic display. See, we've been combining your crystal matrix technology with our terraforming systems. Show them, Kelly. The display shifted to show a desert world that would have made most species run screaming for their environmental suits. But there, in the middle of the wasteland, stood a dome. A dome made entirely of living crystal, pulsing with energy, creating a perfect habitable zone beneath it. We call it Project Oasis, Dave explained. Turns out your species' natural crystalline properties, when combined with our stubborn refusal to die, make for excellent planetary engineering. The crystals channel solar energy, regulate atmosphere, and even synthesize water from trace elements. He added with a wink, they make excellent wine glasses. First speaker quip, whose tentacles now sported permanent glitter, a side effect of too many human parties, undulated with excitement. The expansion possibilities are endless. But won't this just increase human colonization rates? Actually, Kelly stepped forward, pulling up another display. We found something interesting. The more we share our survival techniques with other species, the less they worry about us expanding. Turns out nobody fears the crazy Death Worlders when they're teaching you how to survive anywhere. The display showed dozens of joint colonization projects, humans working alongside crystalline beings to create living cities, gaseous entities using modified human pressure suits to explore new worlds. Even the silicon-based species had started an extreme mineral sports league. But the most interesting development, Dave continued, has been in beverage technology. Ambassador Zark-Tal, would you like to share the news? Zark-Tal's matrix shifted to proud purple as they activated their own display. We've discovered that our natural crystalline structure, when properly aligned, can age alcoholic beverages 500 times faster than traditional methods. We call it quantum aging. The first batch of human whiskey processed through our matrices sold for enough credits to fund an entire colonial expedition. More importantly, Dave added, it's opened up whole new avenues of cultural exchange. Did you know that crystalline beings can get tipsy if you run certain frequencies through their matrices? Totally safe, completely voluntary, and makes for some amazing light shows. And the truth serum, someone called from the back. Oh, we still use that, Dave grinned. But now we add it to drinks voluntarily, throw a party, and call it honest. Our best way to prevent diplomatic incidents is to plan them in advance, after all. The chamber erupted in multi-species laughter, creating a cacophony of sounds from chuckles to crystalline chimes to gaseous whooshes. But the real breakthrough, Kelly announced, triggering one final display, is what we're announcing today. Thanks to our combined research into human alcohol tolerance and crystalline energy channeling, we've developed something unprecedented. She held up what looked like a small crystal pendant. Universal environmental adaptation. A personal shield that lets any species survive on any world. No more death worlds. No more hostile planets. Just possibilities. The chamber went silent. Of course, Dave added casually, the first batch will go to anyone willing to try human vodka. For testing purposes, naturally. Every diplomatic appendage in the room shot up again. And that, Dave whispered to Kelly as the chamber erupted in excited chaos, is how you turn an attempted poisoning into a galactic renaissance. Want to tell them about hot sauce next? One crisis at a time, Kelly smiled, watching as Zark-Tal attempted to teach a group of energy beings the proper way to clink crystal glasses. Although, I did bring some ghost peppers from my garden. In the years that followed, historians would debate whether humanity's greatest contribution to galactic civilization was their terraforming technology, their survival skills, or their ability to turn any diplomatic crisis into a party. The only thing everyone agreed on was that attempting to poison humanity's wine had been the best diplomatic mistake in galactic history. And somewhere in a carefully preserved crystal decanter in the Grand Council chamber, they kept that first bottle of spiked wine. The label read, "Here's to failed conspiracies and successful friendships. Best served with a sense of humor."